Hi there guys, and welcome back to Same Ship Different Day. You join me here back on board Pacific Explorer. Different office location today. I'm here in Turtle Cove doing a bit of filming for you. I'm here to tell you all about the process from the ship's side of joining and repatriating crew at the moment. You've seen it from my side, joining via that charter flight from Rome. This will be a very similar process on one end of it, but obviously I wanted to show you all the background that goes into stores, fuel, bunkering, taking extra crew to help out, all that kind of process, crew transfers, all that kind of thing, in order to give you more of a bigger picture of what's been going on cruise ships whilst you've been away, the difficulties that we're still experiencing even now, nearly 18 months on. And I thought that would be interesting for you, so if you like the sound of that, we'll get going. As always guys, my views and opinions do not reflect those of my employer. Let's go. Okay, so the plan is to repatriate many crew members via the port of Manila. Obviously we have a lot of Filipinos on board, and so we'll be taking them to their home port in that case, which makes things a little bit easier. But also there'll be a lot of crew heading back to Europe and all over the world, and they'll be taking a flight, commercial flights out of Manila in order to do that. Obviously a process like this takes lots of planning. It takes weeks and months to arrange. So the first step for the ship, for Pacific Explorer, is to go into port and collect all the stores that we would need for an operation of this size for taking on extra crew members, and obviously the fuel as well that we will need to get ourselves over to Manila. So the port that we go to is the closest one that we have really at the moment. From our anchorage position outside of Singapore, we go into the port of Singapore, we go to another anchorage called Changi, and in Changi we can have a small tanker come alongside us, a bunker barge tanker that will come alongside and we'll take the fuel from, and also there's a barge that will come with a tug alongside and drop off all the stores and provisions that we will need for this kind of process. So we'll be in Changi for 2 days, and I'll show you some footage of that going in. So fuel wise, we're taking MGO at the moment. That's what we're burning here on board Pacific Explorer, so quite clean, like diesel oil essentially. So quite expensive, but it's what we're using here at the moment. So we're taking about 1200 cubic meters, 1200 tons of MGO on board, and that should be sufficient to get us to Manila and back again, with obviously some redundancy as well. The engine configuration we have here is 2 DGs most of the time for runs like this, with the option of going up to 4 diesel generators if we absolutely need to, but the plan is to do the run on 2 DGs, slow speed run around 12 to 14 knots all the way over there. On board we're going to be taking lots of stores, we're going to have extra crew joining, then we're going to have all the crew members that need to be repatriated. We're looking at about an additional 200 odd that need repatriating, plus another probably 15 to 20 to help us out on this process. So you're looking to have on board almost 350 crew at one point, so we need plenty of provisions for that. And so we do have a barge come alongside us that has the provisions on board from Singapore. Then they're able to load it through one of our shell doors on deck 4, and that operation is supervised, and then it goes into the stores and then what we call our cambusa area and into our refrigerators and all that kind of thing, ready for distribution as required around the ship. Obviously this process takes quite a long time. We're actually in port for approximately 24 hours overall. We arrive afternoon one day around 12 noon, we take a pilot and go into the anchorage position, and then about noon the next day, once we've finished, we disembark on another pilot who's come on for that process after leaving the anchorage, and we head through the Singapore Straits and back out to OPL. The reason we come back to OPL, to the anchorage position, is that this is where all the corporation ships of this area are at the moment, and so we need to transfer the crew that both need to go back to Manila to be repatriated, and the ones that we need for working. Obviously the best way to do this is to get our workers on board first, so they can do their familiarization, they can get ready in the position. So the first day after coming out from the Singapore anchorage area where we've been for our provisions, we go straight and we meet up with the Pacific Encounter, and we take several crew members from there to help us over the next few days. The next morning then is time for taking all of these other crew members. Now the best way to do this obviously is by tender, as we're all at anchor, open sea, and so ships will send tenders to us with their crew members and anything extra, maybe provisions they're going to give us and assist us with as well. But we take the crew members via the tenders from our deck 3 pontoon. They'll come and embark on board, and they'll go into their respective passenger cabins with balconies usually at the moment, Of course, in this situation, they don't need to quarantine because they've been at sea. They're from green ships. There's no COVID-19 around or anything like that on board these vessels out at anchor here. We've all been here for quite a long time now. So they're coming on board and they're able to go around the ship and use the facilities as they like. Now, the reason we didn't embark the crew prior to going to Singapore is because there is this restriction at the moment, a 2-week sort of blackout period, if you like, where we're not allowed to have any interaction with any other ships, take any stores, take any transfers, take any people, or pass any people off either. That 2-week blackout period is before going to Singapore to go to the anchorage. If you're going alongside in Singapore, it's now a 3-week blackout period. We're not allowed to have any interaction with anyone at all. So that 2-week period was done. We went in, got our stores. Now we can take crew from these other ships ready to head off to Manila. The run to Manila is about 1,200 nautical miles, just over, to get over there. And like I said, average speed, probably 12 to 14 knots, something like that on the run. If we can, do it 2 DGs. If necessary, we put 3 DGs on for a little bit. That run over to Manila will take about 4 days, arriving as per schedule at the end of May. Now, the next part of this operation is about getting these crew members off in Manila. Obviously, there's lots of different restrictions in different countries around the world, and the restrictions that are in place there are that crew members that are requiring a PCR test and/or are disembarking as Filipino nationals have to undergo a quarantine period. Crew members that are flying internationally and only require an antigen COVID test on arrival are allowed to disembark pretty much immediately on arrival once we've cleared our quarantine and medical inspection, and we can go alongside. So on approach, we actually go to anchor. We take on these quarantine officials. They do their inspections. We also take on 2 nurses. These 2 nurses are there to monitor the quarantine period that's happening. It's going to be a 10-day quarantine for the Filipinos and 5-day quarantine for the international flyers that require a PCR test. So this 5-day quarantine and 10-day quarantine starts on the day of arrival. So as we arrive in that port, midnight before we arrive, they're in their cabins, they're quarantined, they're not allowed to leave, food will be delivered to them. These are crew members, obviously, that have been on board for many, many months, and so therefore, obviously, do not have anything, but this is the process that we have to follow. Then on arrival to that anchorage, we take these nurses on board, we clear the quarantine, and we go alongside into Manila. Day 1, those international crew members that only require an antigen test can disembark and go straight to the airport and fly home. Obviously, has to be done within a set time period. So for within 4 hours of disembarking the ship, they need to be on a plane ready to go. So it's quite a tight window, as you can imagine. Anyway, successfully got those off and to the airport. 5 days later, we plan to have these people come on and perform PCR tests from shoreside for the remaining crew members that need to be disembarked. However, being alongside for a long time with all these extra crew members on board, you accumulate what we call grey water, wastewater, and things like that. We need to go out to sea to discharge as per the requirements. So we planned a marine operations at some stage. The added factor that we had, this is sort of a part of the world, being in Manila, where you get tropical revolving storms, typhoons as they're called locally, come through the area, and there was a tropical storm that didn't quite get elevated to a typhoon level coming through, and day by day we could see it was getting closer and closer to Manila where we were alongside. Obviously this is risky for a ship of this size and high windage, and so we decided to leave a couple of days early, get out to sea and escape this tropical storm Dante, as it was called, before it hit the port of Manila. So we escaped, we did our marine operations, a couple of days out of sea, and then we head back in the morning, ready for these PCR tests on day 5. The whole time we have these nurses on board and the crew members quarantined in their cabins for this 5 and 10 day period. I think I filmed a bit of footage on the way back in the morning, so I'll show you that as well. A beautiful morning to come in. And I had to work a little bit later because we are low manning right now. We had one of our officers disembark on this call as well. Hi guys, good morning. It is actually morning. This is sunrise, the first one I've seen for quite a long time. We're just coming into Manila. I had to finish a little bit late tonight or this morning, so it's about 5:30 now. I've just finished. This is Corregidor Island over behind me, and we're coming into Manila Bay. So this is quite a tight passage, just coming through the TSS, North TSS. We'll be heading into the bay and into Manila, back into Manila. This is actually the second time after we had to leave due to the tropical storm that came through. Anyway, I thought I'd show you this, my first sunrise for a long time. So back in alongside, day 5 PCR test, that all goes smoothly of course, no interaction with anyone or any ships for a long time, so everybody was tested negative. And on day 5, those international leavers could leave, including one of our officers from the bridge, and fly home to whatever country around the world they needed to go to following their PCR test. The final group of people heading to the airports in their hazmat suits. The next group of leavers will be Filipinos who will go to a shoreside hotel, and then finally we're going to get our joiners on board who will be taking over from me, the new senior second officer, and then it's my turn. Day 5 done then, we head over to day 10, which is finally when the Filipinos can disembark. It's a 14-day quarantine they actually have to do, but they do 10 days on board under the supervision of these shoreside nurses, and then 4 days in a hotel shoreside. So these guys that are disembarking on day 10 will actually not be going home yet. They have to go for another 4 days in a hotel somewhere, even despite having a PCR test and all the rest. This is the regulation. So we successfully get them disembarked as well, which is fantastic. So that all these crew members, I think 138 Filipinos, disembark on day 10 of these 207 that we've managed to repatriate from this call. And then we move on to the next step. Now 10 days alongside in Manila, obviously all these various things, bad weather and wind that we have alongside to deal with, but all part of the job. Once these guys are disembarked, we're then allowed the following day to embark the new guys coming on board, the new crew members, including my reliever, which I'm very happy about. So we have two groups of people, one coming from a charter flight from Rome, where we have 130 odd crew members coming from on that charter flight that the company's paid for, corporation charter. And then we have all the crew members that are Filipino nationals that are coming in as well. I think they had to do a 7-day quarantine in a hotel before being allowed to transit to come on board the ship as well. So, and obviously PCR tests as well as always. So they've already been through a bit of a process. Obviously the guys have come from all around Europe to board this charter flight in Rome and fly to us in Manila. The new joiners are starting to arrive, and my reliever should be here in around about 3 hours. And now finally the charter flight from Europe has arrived from Rome to Manila. You can see the buses down there, a few new joiners, but they're bringing them in slowly because of the rain, obviously. I've just jumped out the gym to get this footage. It's about 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, so hopefully we'll get this done within the next hour or so. There's one more joiner and we can leave. Good to see my reliever joining. We embarked 247 crew members on this day. They've all gone straight into quarantine, obviously in the cabins. These guys are fresh, they're from shoreside. They're not been on any of these ships around here for a long time like the other crew, and therefore they need to perform a 14-day quarantine, which is made up of a 7-day hard quarantine where they must stay in their cabins and have food delivered to them, etc., and a 7-day soft quarantine where they may go around for work and familiarization, but will still always be eating their meals in their cabins. See, the idea of this soft quarantine really, I guess, is so that no matter when they're out of their cabin, the mask is worn, because there is no moment where they're taking their mask off to eat or drink or anything like that. All of that is done inside their cabins for that 7-day soft quarantine at the end. However, they can work and take over and do the handover, which is important for me because it means I can finish working as well. So successfully then, 10 days later after arriving in Manila, we are able to leave with all of these 247 new joiners on board. So all in all, a very successful call over in Manila. Obviously, we would have to take more stores as well, which we did during the process there. We embarked lots and lots of more provisions and stores for these new crew members. Fuel-wise, we actually were able to manage with the fuel that we bunkered back in Singapore, and now we're successfully heading back to OPL, where we're now going to have to distribute these crew members that we've just picked up to all the corporation ships around Singapore, in the OPL anchorage. For me personally, after my reliever has done his 7-day hard quarantine, he will then be able to come and start his handover period, take over the role from me, and hopefully after the first few days having arrived back at anchor, I can then go to room on board, as it's called, or ferry personnel, where I'm no longer working, but I'm on board until I can find a route home. Most likely for me, it's looking like early July, second week of July to get home. I'm probably going to have to transfer over to the Crown Princess in late June, and then so provided that that's before the 14-day period before they can go to Singapore, and then I'll be fortunate enough to disembark in Singapore second week of July and head home finally for I think a well-earned vacation. I'll obviously be bringing you content on all of that as well. If you liked what you saw this time, please do like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Obviously lots more content coming along. I'm going to try and get into a bit more of a routine, get this out to you as soon as I can, one by one. I thought it was important for you to see this side of operations and see all what we're going through at the moment, even this far on into the pandemic just to get crew members on board and back home safely. And I thought you might enjoy a bit of the behind the scenes footage. Anyway guys, I'll leave it there. I'll probably leave you with another beautiful sunset, but also, as you saw in one of my old videos, people like to play the piano, and with new crew members on board for this ferry operation, we got a few more pianists on board as well, so I can show you that footage. Enjoy it, take care of yourselves, stay safe, and I'll see you very soon for the next one. Sticking with you right through to the end there, guys. I hope you enjoy this beautiful sunset en route to Manila, and enjoy a bit of this piano music from our talented crew members on board. Obviously these guys are heading home now, so getting a last minute practice in before they get to go home. Thanks for watching guys. If you liked it, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you very soon on the next one. Stay safe.